there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real-life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you. Before we get started, just a quick word from our sponsors. Thank you to Darren, Kate, and Rachel Ann for becoming Patreon sponsors. We really appreciate your support and hope that you enjoyed the Patreon sponsor exclusive podcast episode for November called An INFJ Learning to Say No. In this episode, we discussed why it's so important for INFJs to say no, the best way to start saying no, and how to set healthy boundaries. You can help support the Quiet Ones podcast too and get access to exclusive podcast episodes, blog posts, and more when you become a Patreon sponsor for just $5 a month. Sign up today at patreon.com/INFJwoman. Find the link in the show notes. Hi there, Sarah Kuhn here. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. I am so excited that you're here today. We have a great episode for you. This week was so busy for me. This morning, I couldn't find my keys. And I live by myself, and I always put them in the same place. So I was completely panicked for about 15 minutes as to what happened to them. When I finally calmed down, I started thinking about the step-by-step process of where I had to have had them last. I knew they weren't in my car because I had unlocked the front door with them. So I went to check the door, and there they were, on the outside of the door, still in the lock. It made me think about how many times I've been in a panic to do something right now, to find the answers, to get my blog going, to get to 10,000 followers on Instagram. I was a panicked mess. But when I actually sat down and took a breath, I realized that there was a step-by-step process that I could follow to see the answer, and it wasn't nearly as bad as I was making it. So we started this growth mindset group last week, and I've been talking to some amazing ladies who signed up for the program. And when you sign up, you get 3 free coaching calls. So we've been diving into things that they're struggling with, and I've been giving them some real doable solutions to figure out what they're supposed to do with their lives, to really find their passion, that thing that they're supposed to do. So one of the things that I've done is I created a new quiz to help you figure out this one thing that you're supposed to do with your life. What are you good at? What do you like to do? What kind of career do you want? It's a short quiz that will help you get some of the answers. And if you put your email in at the end, I'll send you some freebies to help get you going. You can find the link for the quiz in the show notes. Also, if you're interested in learning more about finding your purpose and finding the right career, it's not too late to get on the free masterclasses that I'm offering for joining the Growth Mindset program. I'm going to extend them for a bit longer, so anyone who wants to join has the chance. It's only $25 a month to join, and there's no commitment or contract to sign. You can stop your subscription anytime that you like. If you have any questions, please send them to me on Facebook or Instagram, or you can email me at podcast@infjwoman.com. And also, I'm planning a meetup in Boston and in New York City in the next couple of months. If you are in the area and you can join us, please fill out a short survey so that I can get some more information from you. There's also a link for that in the show notes. Okay, so this week I want to share with you an interview that I did with Olivia Powell from Overcoming Narcissistic Relationships with Olivia podcast. Olivia is a narcissistic abuse survivor who is now a life coach helping women who have been in this situation. She has also become a really good friend of mine, and I'm so glad to have gotten to know her. She's an amazing friend and also an amazing coach as well. I really encourage you to check out her podcast. She interviews some amazing women and offers some really good advice. Now, this interview that you're about to hear was recorded for her podcast, so that's why it sounds like she's interviewing me, because she actually is. And this was my first interview ever, so I was super nervous. But after the interview, Olivia was so sweet. She said, "You should really think about doing your own podcast. You were amazing." And it was really the push that I needed, because I was in the process of putting my podcast together at that point. So her words of encouragement were very helpful and very timely. Okay, so here's the interview. Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode. Today I have someone here who is a writer, a blogger, and an Instagram account owner. Her name is Sarah, and she's from the INFJ Woman Instagram account. Now, this is a bit different to what I would normally do. However, I thought I'd share something with you guys. When I first broke up with my narcissist, I was a bit confused and a bit lost about who I was and my sense of identity and what made me me and all this sort of stuff. And I started researching personality tests just to kind of get an idea a bit more about who I was, because I felt like I was going through not a personality crisis, but like an identity crisis. So I found the Myers-Briggs personality test, and it has 16 different personalities that the general population fit into. And mine ended up being an INFJ, and that is like short for something which we'll go into with Sarah today. And when I found out what I was, I started researching more and more about it. And as time's gone on, I've obviously liked some Instagram accounts and liked some quotes and all that sort of stuff, because I was really discovering who I was and this sort of thing. And the INFJ Woman account popped up, and I got in contact with Sarah, and we got chatting, and she agreed to come on the podcast today to explain a bit more about what an INFJ is and a bit about the Myers-Briggs personality test and how to know, I guess, what you are. So I will put a link in the show notes at the end of this podcast episode. So you can just click the link and it can take you through so you can do your own questionnaire. There are about 70 questions from memory. I've done it a couple of times now, like 5, and I think it's 5, something like that. And I keep showing up as an INFJ or an ENFJ, which is quite funny. I was definitely an INFJ in my relationship because I did the test before it ended, and then I did some more research after. And sometimes I get an ENFJ, which just means I'm purely swinging between being an introvert and an extrovert. Personally, I feel like I'm an extroverted introvert, where I look like I'm extroverted, but in actual fact, I recharge my batteries all alone. And I prefer it that way. So Sarah, tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us a bit about how you created this account and what made you, I guess, figure out that you were an INFJ as well.
Well, I've been studying about personality types for a long time, actually. When I was in college several years ago, I took a class where they required us to take the test, and mine came up INXJ. And the X stands for that it's basically in the middle of F and T. So I was in college and I was super busy, and I thought, wow, that's cool. But I just kind of threw it in a box and didn't think about it for a while. Mm-hmm. And then years later, I was going through some of my boxes, and it was a good time because I was going through kind of a personal crisis, and I was looking for answers, and I came across the test, and I was like, I need to really think about this some more. Let me go take this test again and see if maybe there's some more information out there.
Yeah.
And it really changed my life, honestly, learning more about my personality and studying about it. It helps me so much to know why I do certain things and why I have certain thought processes and why I react to things in certain ways.
Absolutely. And do you think that learning more about your strengths and weaknesses have actually given you like an advantage? Like it's actually helped you know how you respond and kind of choose better if you wanted to?
I think it does. And I think that part of INFJ, part of our personality types is that we want other people around us to be comfortable. And so we're constantly looking at them and learning about them and figuring out what we can do best to make them comfortable. We're more concerned about their emotions than we are about our own emotions. And so for me, learning about my personality helps me relate to other people. But then at the same time, it helped me even recognize that that was what I was doing, because I thought that's what everybody did. And I couldn't understand why some people didn't see things, the way that I see them. Like when somebody's doing something that is annoying or when they're being loud or, things like that that disturb me, I think, why would they do that? Because I would be so conscious of the fact that it would disturb them. And, I didn't understand that they have a different personality type, so they're going to react to things differently. So once I started learning about my personality type and I realized that was one of the biggest things, then it helped me to understand that they see the world differently than I do. One of the biggest things too is I was telling my 13-year-old niece about the personality test, and she was so excited to take the test. And her test came up INTP.
Oh.
And it's such a fun dynamic talking to her about the test and learning how she sees things differently than I do. And then it helps me to be able to relate to her and to help her, because she's right in the middle of the teenage years that are kind of crazy with, high school and hormones and all those things. So for me to be able to explain certain things to her, your mom is having a bad day and this is why she's reacting this way. So maybe if you do this, it will help, and, different things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite interesting too, because it's been used, like the Myers-Briggs personality test has been used in so many different contexts. So like even in workplaces, I've known of some businesses that don't advertise a certain position. They just get people to take these tests and then they allocate where they should belong in the company according to their personality types and what is going to be the most rewarding and fulfilling for them and what their strong suits are and all that sort of stuff to make the company and business stronger. And I've known people that have taken it, in different contexts as well, like people that have wanted to find out why they get along with certain personality types over others and all this sort of stuff. So you can use it for personal and professional uses. But for those that don't know anything about this and don't even know what an INFJ stands for or what it means, can you explain a bit about the acronym?
Sure. So the Myers-Briggs theory says that every person in the whole world fits into one of 16 personality types. And those personality types are made up of 4 letters. So you're either extroverted or introverted, or kind of like what you said, you would probably be considered an ambivert, which is in the middle.
Yeah.
Extroverted sometimes and introverted sometimes.
That's definitely me.
So that's the first letter. The second letter is either an N or an S, which is intuitive or sensing. The third letter is either thinking or feeling. And the fourth letter is either perceiving or judging. So for INFJs, we are introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging.
Yeah. So just to kind of let everyone know, there's different percentages of personalities that make up the population. And one thing that I was really fascinated by was that the INFJ is only 1% to 2% of the population, which still kind of shocks me a little bit, but apparently it is. It's more common in females than males. And it has different titles, I guess. All the different 16 personality types have got different titles, and it goes through what kind of careers would best suit you, what you like in relationships, what you like, as a parent or as a child. And then they've also got some famous people and celebrities that kind of have similar personality types from what they can tell as well. So the interesting thing with INFJ is, firstly, it's considered rather rare, and its titles are known as the counselor, the mystic, and the empath, which I find is fascinating as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and in the INFJ careers, it was talking about how generally those people would be really good psychologists, counselors, life coaches, all this sort of stuff, and carers like nurses, principals, all that sort of stuff. Can you add anything to that, Sarah? I'm just trying to think. I've had a bit of a memory lapse.
I think that we do really well in careers where we relate to people, because one of the biggest things for our personality is that we're natural negotiators, and we are also natural counselors. So a lot of INFJs find that they're counselors for their friends and their family members. I know that in my family and in my friends as well, I'm the middle person. I'm always the middle person. I'm the one who can see all the sides of a situation and try to figure out the best solution for everybody involved. And I think that goes back to thinking about other people's emotions before ours as well. It's something that just comes natural for me, is always reading everybody in the room. And it's almost an unconscious thing, which is where the intuitive thing comes into play. We almost have this ability to be able to read people in a way that's almost, it's not quite like psychic, it's not quite on that level. And it's kind of hard for me to explain because as soon as I start talking about it, people start saying, oh, you think that you're psychic or that you're, telepathic or clairvoyant or something. And it's not that. It's like somewhere in between how most people are and then that level, which it's reading people's body language, reading their reactions to things. It's almost like reading energies where you just get a feeling about something and you know the energy of the person, things that are going to happen, and you can predict things because you see patterns and you're constantly just picking up all of this information from the people around you. And you do it in such a way that you don't even know what you're doing, but then you're able to tell what's going to happen, and you're able to tell things about people a lot quicker than other people can. And you're able to read their personalities as well, I guess is a way to put it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And, we can go into more depth as well by just kind of touching on, I guess, the description of the INFJ online as well, because I've just got it up here that we can kind of go through. But no, it does make sense, 100%. And I won't read all of it because I'll be here for a couple of hours. I'll go through a few dot points that the website talks about, because some of the people that listen to this will most likely be an INFJ as well. And if not an INFJ, probably something pretty similar, because at the end of the day, like attracts like. So people that listen to my podcast are generally women. People that listen to my podcast and follow my stuff are generally on the codependent side of the scale as opposed to narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
And the women that listen to me and follow my stuff as well are usually empathic or have some sort of empathic traits generally. So yeah, I encourage everybody that hasn't already done this to literally go and do it. It is going to be eye-opening. I think it's actually an act of self-love. Would you agree with that, Sarah?
Yeah, I think so, because, it helps you to know more about yourself, and it helps you also to be able to pick out the things that you need to work on, and then the places that you're falling short as well. So yeah, I definitely think that it's a great place to start.
People generally have an emotion complex, so they want to feel lovable, a sense of belonging, and they're good enough. And so when you read your personality type and find out what you are, even if you're not an INFJ, which is totally fine if you're not, everyone's got their own strengths and weaknesses and their different personality types for sure. I think what it does is it's an act of self-love in the way that you're prioritizing discovering more about who you are, and that kind of, for me, opens up a lot of doors, because you can kind of understand more about why you act certain ways in life and how you handle those and that sort of thing. So anyway, let's talk about the INFJ a little bit more. Introduction. It's also called the Advocate, by the way, as a title, not just the Counselor, the Mystic and the Empath. So the Advocate personality type is very rare, making up less than 1% of the population, but they nonetheless leave their mark on the world. Advocates have an inborn sense of idealism and morality, but what sets them apart is that they are not idle dreamers. These individuals are capable of taking concrete steps to realize their goals and make a lasting positive impact. People with this personality type tend to see others as their purpose in life. Advocates can often be found engaging in rescue efforts and doing charity work. However, their real passion is to get to the heart of the issues so that people need not to be rescued at all. So that's just the introduction, guys. But on the actual site, it'll go through, so the introduction, your strengths and weaknesses, and romantic relationships, friendships, parenthood, career paths, workplace habits, and conclusion, which is really cool. So Sarah, tell us about your story. How did you find out? I remember you were saying in messages to each other that, you were working in this, I guess you had a narcissistic type of boss, and you discovered you're an INFJ there and then ended up leaving that job. Is that right?
I did, yes. So it goes back to what you were just reading about INFJs not only being dreamers, but also doers. When I was in high school, I had this dream that I was going to work for. I wanted to be around NASCAR, which is really big in the United States. They're race cars.
Oh, different.
I fell in love with race cars, and I wanted to be a part of the sport. And I turned my life upside down, moved halfway across the country all by myself so that I could be close to where they were. And after about 3 years, I landed a job at a marketing agency, and we managed race car drivers and sponsors. Mm-hmm. And it was my dream job. It was everything that I wanted. And I got to go to the racetrack every weekend. And during the week, during the day, I was just managing social media for race car drivers, putting together sales presentations. It was everything that I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. While I was there, the boss that I had turned out to be the worst thing in the world. I knew after about 6 months that there was something that was really wrong with him.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't feel safe being around him. He would say things like, Sarah, you do the best work in the whole entire world, but your personality is just so terrible that nobody wants to be around you.
Okay.
I mean, we had several of these meetings where we'd sit down in the conference room and I'd be like, oh no, I know I've messed up. I've done something that's like really bad because he wants to talk to me again. And so I kind of felt like I internalized all of that. And I thought, well, there must be really something wrong with me because he keeps telling me that there's really something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Which made me, it made me not feel safe. It made me really question every single thing that I did and question everything that I said to him. Even simple things like on Monday, he would come into the office and say, hey, did you have a good weekend? What did you do this weekend? And I would tell him what I did. And he'd make snarky comments about it, or later he would use that against me. So it got to the point where I didn't even want to have friendly conversation with him. I didn't even tell him anything about what I was doing. In that situation, I reached out to a couple of friends. And, everybody that I told about him was like, there's something wrong with him. He's not a normal person. It was such a difficult situation for me because I knew that I wanted to get away from him, that I had to get away from him, but that was my dream job. And I wanted to be in that job. I had worked for a long time to be in that job. So I thought, well, I can just stick it out because it's really not that bad. And as long as I don't make him mad, then it'll be fine. So I tried for 2.5 years to get another job that was in the industry. Yeah. And it's a very specific industry. And you really need to network and get to know people in order to get a different job that's similar to that. But what I realized after a while is that I was spending so much of my time tiptoeing around him and trying not to make him mad and trying to stay within what he thought that I should be, that, by the end of the 3 years that I was there, I didn't even recognize myself. I was a whole different person. I actually ended up going to see a counselor. One of my friends suggested that I should go see a counselor. And I was like, no, I don't think that's for me. And finally, it got so bad that I decided that I would go. And I saw the counselor a couple of times. And she said, Sarah, I think that you have depression. And I was like, that's not true. Like, that's not right. I don't think that I have that. Mm-hmm. But I've always been this independent person who could handle everything by myself. Mm-hmm. And so when she said that, I felt like almost personally slighted. Like, there's no way that I could have that. But she said she was the sweetest counselor ever. She was like, okay, I understand that you don't think that you have it. Why don't you take some time and think about it and maybe do some research on it and then come back and see me when you're ready to talk about it. Like, okay,
I love that response. That's so good.
So I'm like, I'm going to prove this lady wrong. So I go do a bunch of research and I start reading all of the symptoms and how people that have depression act. And I'm like, oh, no, she's right. I do have this. This is like a thing. I got to the point where I was isolating myself from everybody. I wasn't hardly talking at all because my boss had put this idea in my head that everything that I said was wrong. And he would explode at weird times, over things that I didn't even understand why he was exploding over.
Do you feel like he was trying to push you out of the role?
Honestly, I don't know. I think that he was somewhere between he didn't want me there, but he didn't want to hire somebody else either. Yeah. I think he just wanted me to be the way that he thought that I should be.
Whereas a good leader, like an actual leader, and not like, there's two different types of leaders. There's the ones that fearmonger people into doing what they want them to do. And then there's an actual leader who gets down and dirty and does it all with people and leads them and brings out the best in them. When you've got a leader that is, I don't even really call them a leader, I call them a manager, because managers typically like to fearmonger people. And what he said to you about your personality was actually a personal attack. And that's not appropriate at work. Do you know what I mean? And an actual leader wouldn't condemn you for whatever it is that they didn't like about you and your personality. A real, true, genuine, authentic leader that like sees the strengths and the good in people would actually play to your strengths, rather than pointing out all the things they don't like about you personally or in a professional context. a proper good leader actually would draw more of that good stuff out of you and help you succeed in that role. Do you know what I mean? That's my take on what a good leader is, at least.
Yes, I agree 100%. And I learned from him everything that you shouldn't do, honestly.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was part of it that was good for me because once I went to see the counselor and learned that I had depression, I started really researching about personality types, about mental health problems, about how to fix all of these things. And that's when I learned I was actually mistyped for a while as an INTJ.
Really?
And
how did that happen?
I took the test and it came up INTJ, and I thought, oh, that's exactly what I am. And I was reading the description and I thought everything fit really well with me. I ended up leaving that job and I moved back to the Midwest where my niece is. And my niece is a big part of the story because, like I said, she's an INTP and she keeps me in check, honestly. I think everyone needs one in their lives. We were having a conversation maybe 2 years ago, and I was trying to explain to her grandma was mad at her, and I was trying to explain to her why her grandma was mad at her and the response that her grandma had and like what she needs to do to fix it. And she says to me, you know, that sounds a lot like you. And I'm like, what do you mean? Because I was trying to explain to her that she had hurt her feelings and, you know, this is how you need to fix it. And my niece is like, it sounds a lot like you. She's like, I know that you think that you're really tough and analytical about things, but you have a lot of feelings too, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm like, well, I do have a lot of feelings, but I don't show them. I lock them deep down inside and I put on this front that I'm almost, I think cold is the wrong word, but very logical. And I just don't show people when I get emotional. And she was the one who kind of called me out on it and said, well, but you have the feelings. She's like, people who have a thinking personality don't think that way with their feelings. And that really got me studying the personality types and saying, okay, let me read this whole INFJ thing. Yeah, that's really more me. And even when I take the test now, I still test almost 50-50 on the T and the F.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask me too, how do you know for sure? Because people take the test and have the same issues that I have where they'll come up 50-50 on one and they don't really relate to the description once they read it, or they relate differently to a different description. And I think that the test works very well. But I think that once you're done taking the test, that you really need to read the descriptions and really be honest with yourself about how you respond to things. And it's really important that while you're taking the test, you need to be honest with yourself as well. Because I mean, that was my problem, is that I really wasn't being honest with myself. But once I was, and then read all of the descriptions that go along with it, then I was able to see INFJ really fits me a lot more than the INTJ does.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a really good point there, because I was going to mention that at the end of this. I was going to be like, hey girls, when you do the test, make sure you're super honest, like be really, really honest with your answers, because it's not about how you want to deal with things or handle things or how you think you should, but it's about how you actually do it now. You know, so not about what you want to be, but what you actually are in this moment. And just trust that whatever result you get is probably the right one for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know sometimes I'm reading the answers, I was like, oh, I'd love to be able to answer that. But I'm like, do I do that? No, I don't. And so I answered the one that I do. And there's no right or wrong. You know, at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong. And it's not a tangible thing because, you know, out of the 16 personalities, it's not like it's a box of tissues that you can go, this is definitely a box of tissues. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's all behavioral psychology stuff. So I think you're going to get the best result if you're super duper internally honest. And whatever result you get, just be okay with it, you know, like have a read through it and don't kind of reject it when you read it and go, no, I don't want to be this, because that just might be what you are at the moment. And that's okay. And sometimes they can change a bit. As I said, I've gone from INFJ to ENFJ back to INFJ. Like sometimes it depends what mood you're in when you take the test, you know, what's influenced you that day, that sort of thing. But when you do it, I would do it when you're in a really good positive mind frame where you're not stressed or distracted by other things. I would just do it at a time when you can sit down with a cup of tea with no interruptions and you're in a good state, you're in a good vibe, you're in a good energy. You're not, you know, feeling distracted or pulled in different directions, or you've got to cook dinner and the kids are screaming at you. Like do it at an appropriate time and do it as a fun thing, because it is really fun.
Yeah. But I agree with what you said for sure, that especially for me, one of my biggest weaknesses is perfectionism. I have this idea in my head of what I want to be, and sometimes I project that and it's not exactly what I am. So when I was taking the test, I was thinking, oh, this is how I'd like to be. Yeah, it didn't turn out very well.
No, you're right. It's true. And like, because I haven't looked up the INFJ stuff for a while, but you know, your thing popped up on my Instagram feed a few weeks ago. And it's funny because I've been reading more and more quotes of the INFJ, and the more, because I've done a lot of personal development over the last year, or the last couple of years, but more so, especially since January this year when I took on a business coach. But I feel like I've definitely developed, evolved and grown and worked through a lot of my own stuff. And so when I go back and I look at quotes about INFJ and stuff, I feel like I've worked through a lot of that people pleasing stuff and a lot of that perfectionism stuff. Do you know what I mean? So if I was to take the test again, I would probably get a different result, but I think it's important to know what your baseline is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll always be an INFJ first, but the work and stuff that I've done on my personality and, you know, my internal world and all this sort of stuff, as that changes, that's going to inherently change me a little bit. Do you know what I mean? So then I might respond differently to certain answers and stuff. So if I was to take it again and I get a different result, that's great because it means that there's been some growth there. But at the same time, I'll always be, like, when you think about it, my essential self was always an INFJ, ENFJ, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Going back to the whole situation about how your boss in the workplace kind of led to depression, do you feel like that was circumstantial, like it was brought on from that environment or being around the boss, or was there other things going on at the time that kind of led to that outcome? And when you left that job, did you feel like your depression got better?
I think that it was the main reason that I was struggling at that point. And this is where learning that I was an INFJ helped me a lot, because I've always felt like I was different, like I didn't belong, and that I didn't really connect to a lot of people. So I've struggled for the majority of my life finding friends, finding people that I really connect to, that really understand what I'm saying and how I'm feeling about things. Starting with that, I already didn't have very much self-confidence. And then when I walked into that situation and had somebody that was beating down on me just every single day, I mean, it was just inevitable that I was going to have some kind of depression. When I left there, I really felt like I had PTSD. I left there in 2016. And really, it's only been just in the last maybe 6 or 8 months that I felt so much better. There was a lot of stuff for me to work through and unpack and figure out how to deal with after I left that. It feels like a work of a lifetime for me, because it's not just overcoming what he thought about me, but it's learning about myself and being able to accept the way that I am, and to know the differences between the parts of my personality that I want to accept and the parts that I can change and make better and improve on.
I love that.
And that's where learning about personality types is, you know, it's been so helpful for me, just being able to realize that there are other people out there that are just like me. That's why I started the Instagram account that I have, the INFJ Woman. I realized that I had so much information about INFJs, and it just kind of dawned on me one day that maybe there are other people out there. I mean, I know it says like there's only 2% of the population of the world are INFJs, but that 2% is still a pretty big number, right?
I feel like it might be going to be more than that now, because as the population grows, I don't know, it's just when I've done my research too, it's like so many people can relate and like it and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is actually a lot more than what I would have thought.
Yeah, and they come up with those numbers based on statistics. And, you know, statistics are only as good as the people putting them together. So I don't know, there could be a lot more than 2%.
In my personal opinion.
There are definitely a lot of people that relate to it, though, for sure.
Yeah, and you've got like, I'm just on your Instagram account now, like you've got 23.8 thousand followers. Like that is a lot of people following you. And that's just one account. So imagine all the thousands of others accounts out there of all the different INFJs that like it, relate to it and share it and comment and all that sort of stuff.
It's amazing to me, that number, and it's amazing that it grows by like 1,000 people a week, sometimes over 1,000 people.
You're kidding.
Yeah. What's crazy too is the number of people that send me messages that say, you know, something similar to what you said, and just like I'm so glad that you have this account. Like, you helped me figure out what my personality is, and you helped me feel like I'm not alone in the world. And, you've really made a big difference on my life, which is just, it's so amazing for me to be able to hear that. That's exactly what I wanted to do, was to help other people and to touch their lives and to make sure that they know that they're not alone and that there are other people out there like them, and that their personality, it's not broken. It's they're made that way on purpose, and
Absolutely.
that there are people out there that will celebrate those things.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it doesn't surprise me that people are reaching out to you writing those things, because, a typical trait of an INFJ is that from a young age, you do feel different from the people around you. Even if you've had plenty of friends or you've had a little amount of friends, you never really feel like you truly fit in. And then sometimes you feel like you've had to fake it to make it, or you fake, I guess, you kind of aren't fully authentically yourself, or you don't feel safe to be that way, but you do feel the need for a sense of community and harmony and belonging and that sort of thing. And so, I think that is what makes the INFJ truly curious about people too, because not only are they wanting to learn more about themselves, but they're usually fascinated by people in general as a whole, and behavior and all that sort of stuff.
Right, for sure. I can't even begin to tell you how many people have told me, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, I've actually changed that saying. So I used to believe in that as well. And then there was a different saying that I've let it take its place. So I wish I could remember it now, because I'm so underprepared for this particular point. But yeah, I used to believe in fake it till you make it, because I did that a lot as a teenager and in my early 20s. And then from my mid-20s onwards, it's been totally different. So instead of faking it to make it, I've become it to make it, if that makes sense. It doesn't flow off the tongue or anything, but I guess what I've done personally is do the work on myself so that I actually can step into being that person and not just pretending that I am. As an INFJ or an ENFJ or whatever it is that you want to, or you think you are, like, I think part of, I guess, maturing and learning to accept yourself and showing yourself self-love is to actually don't pretend and don't fake it. Like, my audience are typically women that have been affected by narcissistic men. And so the narcissists are known for wearing a mask and not being their authentic, true selves until that falls off. And then, you're left with that unfortunate personality. But in some ways, we can do that too as INFJs, not necessarily that we're, narcissistic at all by any means, but by not really truly being yourself or feeling safe to be yourself or really come out and embrace everything of who you are, like, you are faking it till you make it, And so I think it's really lovely and really nice when you get to a point where you don't feel like you have to do that anymore.
Yeah, I think that's really where I've been in the last year, is really just learning how to be myself and to be more authentic. And I don't know if it comes with age or if it comes with learning more about my personality, or the fact that I've had more people around me that have really been encouraging me just to be myself, my true authentic self. And it makes such a huge difference to accept those things and just to be who you really are, rather than trying to change everything about you based on the people that you're around.
Totally. It's very freeing. Fully embrace who you are. And when you get to a level of like self-assurance and confidence where you're like, screw it, if you don't like me, that's fine. Do you know what I mean? Like, a chronic people pleaser growing up, I used to try and please everybody and I wanted everybody to like me. And, it's just not necessarily possible, because if you've got 16 different personality types, they're not all going to get along perfectly. And especially in different contexts with different people and all their belief systems and values and stuff too, like somewhere along the line, there's going to be a clash or a difference or something like that. And that's okay, and then as soon as you kind of, have that wholeness within yourself, then you can really accept who you are, really love who you are, and then you can really step forward and be who you are.
And what I found, the more that I am truly myself and unapologetically exactly how I feel like I should be, the more that I attract people to me, and I attract the right kind of people to me who appreciate that and enjoy it. I always admired the people who were truly unapologetically themselves, and I never thought I could be that way. But as soon as I was, then I realized, that's what people want.
Yeah, you stole the words right out of my mouth. Like, I used to admire, I used to watch those people on social media and, or in real life, and I'd watch them and go, God, they're so comfortable with themselves. I'd love to be like that. Do you know what I mean? Why can't I be like that? I'd ask myself all the wrong questions once again. And then as I've gotten older, like in my late 20s now, I'm just so much more comfortable with who I am. And unapologetically is the right word. It really is. You're just being yourself unapologetically, and it's okay if people love you and it's okay if they don't like you, because at the end of the day, if you like you, that's all you really need. And you will attract other people to you. Like naturally, it just happens, like we're both on Instagram, we've got followers, and it does happen. People reach out to you, because like attracts like. They see a bit of themselves in you, and on some level they like that, so they reach out to you. You've reached a point of acceptance and confidence, and they're striving for that too. Like that's where the connections can start, which is pretty amazing.
Yes, it really is amazing.
The thing I like about your story as well is that the narcissist that you came across was actually in the workplace. And it's funny because I've had a few people reach out to me because predominantly my business is about helping women in narcissistic relationships or move on from narcissistic relationships, like romantic wise. It's funny because I've had more and more women come forward about their workplace issues, either working with a narcissist. I had a nurse or registered midwife from Canada reach out by email saying, my team leader's a narc. What do you suggest I do? I've had all these sort of things. I've had a coaching college peer come forward and go, oh my gosh, I left a job and now I know why. He was a narcissist. These are all things that are matching up. And it's interesting because I've actually got my first speaking gig next month at a networking event, and it's all going to be about how to identify personality types and working with difficult people. And at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is whether they sit on the codependent or narc scale, which I go through in previous episodes. But it's really important to kind of know what you are and then what you're dealing with in the workplace, because whether that be a boss, a colleague, a client, a customer, whatever, at the end of the day, they're all types of relationships. It's all interpersonal skills. It's all business, career, that sort of stuff. And the more that you can identify who you are and where you fit in the grand scheme of things, and then identify where other people sit, it makes your working life a lot easier as to how to handle other people and interact with them as well.
Yes, it makes a huge difference. And being able to identify them earlier, I think would be a huge benefit. That's something that I really need in my life, honestly, because I feel like as an INFJ, we're almost attracted to those kind of people, or they're attracted to us. It's almost like this magnetic thing.
It is. It 100% is. It's funny you said that, because that's what I talk about. Like my bread and butter is all about the codependent narcissistic scale. And when they say opposites attract, they actually do.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so funny that you recognize that as well. And it's such a reoccurring theme. It's not even funny. So crazy. But yeah, what other personality tests would you recommend, or do you think this is the best one that gives the best overview?
I think that's a great one to start with. I know that there are a lot of people that have a lot of faith in the Enneagram test as well.
Oh, yes. I've been learning about that. I need to do that, actually. Have you done it?
Yeah, I have done it. I don't remember exactly what my letters were or my numbers were. I guess that one has numbers.
Yeah, it's a number system.
5W6 or something.
Oh, okay. Can you send me the link after this?
Sure. I actually have a Facebook group, and the girls in the Facebook group were talking about it. So yeah, I'll send you a link if you want to join our Facebook group.
Please do. You can join my group. We'll be each other's group buddies.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd love that, because I've heard lots of people online, or not heard, but I've seen them talk about it, really successful entrepreneurial businesswomen. They're like, I'm this number on the, what do you call it? Enneagram, whatever it is.
Enneagram, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And I want to know what I am now. But apart from the Myers-Briggs personality test and the, I can't even say Enneagram.
Yeah, close enough.
Thing. There's also disc profiling, which is also becoming really quite big. Have you heard of disc?
I feel like somebody just shared that on the group, and I meant to take the test and I haven't had time.
I'd recommend it. It's so good. I haven't done the official one. My business coach has offered it to me. It's a couple of $100 to really go into a lot of depth to find out, what you are and all that sort of stuff. But DISC is another thing that people use in business and in the workplace and all that sort of stuff to kind of find out what they are and what their strengths and weaknesses are. And from my understanding, and I'll give a quick overview because we're running out of time, D is basically dominance. So someone with that personality type is usually larger than life, make quick decisions. They don't wait about and twiddle their thumbs. Once they've made a decision, they go for it, that sort of thing. I is more, and I could be wrong in saying this, but I think it's more interpersonal. So they're all about connecting with people, having good relationships, good quality relationships with people. They usually wear really bright sort of floral out there kind of colors and patterns.
really bold and pretty and that sort of stuff, whereas the Ds actually wear like the best of the best. So they wear like brand stuff or really good quality stuff, you know, that sort of thing, or they only buy like the best sort of stuff for their homes and all this sort of thing. S, I can't remember what it stands for, but it basically means someone that's very nurturing. So they're kind of motherly, very loving, very nurturing. You know, those people that are kind of like the mother hen of the group, or they're very caring for other people and they'll come in and not necessarily try and save them, but, you know, they're that sort of nurturing type.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got C, which are very, you know, it's all got to make logical sense before they make a decision. It's all got to be step by step, make sure all their ducks are in a row. And, you know, they want to know everything about something before they kind of jump in there and that sort of thing. Whereas the D types are like already made the decision and they're looking back there going, you haven't made your mind up yet?
Right.
So, yeah, there's 4 components to that. So DISC, you guys can look into that more if you like online. I'm sure there's thousands of websites on it, and it's good to know what you are. So my business coach isn't quite sure 100% what I am, because sometimes I'll do things or say things that throws her off, and she's like, we really need to do your profiling to kind of figure out what you are, because it's driving me crazy. But I'd say I'm more of an I and a C. Like, so you have a primary that you usually play out in your life, and then you have a secondary as well. So I'm not quite sure what order mine is in, because when it comes to me, I'm very interpersonal and wanting to connect with people and relate to people, and I wear all those bright blocky sort of colours and patterns and stuff. But I'm also very much a C. So, you know, sometimes I think this is kind of an INFJ thing as well, where it's like the battle of the head and the heart. So that's what can sometimes take a while to make a decision, because you're like, oh, I need to make sure I'm making the right decision. I've got my little process before I can actually say, yes, I'm doing this, or yes, I'll buy that, or whatever. And at D, I'm very much D in business. So I'm very much like, yep, let's get this done. I want to get this out, like a podcast episode, like, yeah, let's book it in and, you know, let's upload it and edit it and da-da-da, and boom, it's done. Cool, what's the next thing? Do you know what I mean? And especially at the gym, I'm like, yep, let me do my sets and my reps, and cool, yep, I've done this and I've done that. So it's very like more of a masculine sort of energy.
I'm like the same way.
Really? Like attracts like. Well, I've really loved having you on today. It's so nice to talk to a fellow INFJ. You know, I was going to say face to face, but it's not quite face to face. It's over the computer.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so, really. I would just tell people that I think that it's a great benefit to learn your personality type, and the test is totally free, and it really only takes like 15 to 20 minutes. And I think not only will you learn about yourself, but you'll be able to learn about the other people in your lives too, and how to communicate with them and relate to them better. And it makes such a huge difference. It's definitely worth it. And if you are an INFJ, or you know any INFJs in your life, certainly give me a follow on Instagram or come over and read my blog.
Totally. In fact, what I'm thinking of doing is I might just read out the strengths and weaknesses quickly, like just the dot points from the website, and then can explain where people can find you. Does that sound good to you?
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. So the strengths and weaknesses of an INFJ is, so the strength is creative. So combining a vivid imagination with a strong sense of compassion. Advocates, which is the INFJ, use their creativity to resolve not technical challenges, but human ones. People with INFJ personality enjoy finding the perfect solution for someone they care about, and this strength makes them excellent counselors and advisors, which is funny because we just spoke about that, didn't we?
Yes.
INFJs are insightful, so seeing through dishonesty and disingenuous motives, INFJs step past manipulation and sales tactics and into a more honest discussion. INFJ personalities can see how people and events are connected. They are then able to use that insight to get to the heart of the matter, which I love. That's a great one. They're inspiring and convincing. So speaking in human terms and not technical ones, INFJs have a fluid, inspirational writing style that appeals to their inner idealist in their audience. INFJs can be astonishingly good orators, speaking with warmth and compassion. This is especially true if they are proud of what they are speaking for. Would you agree with that?
Yes, definitely agree with that.
Awesome. INFJs are decisive, apparently. INFJs create insight and inspiration and are able to have a real impact on the world. This is because they are able to follow through on their ideas with conviction, willpower, and the planning necessary to see complex projects through to the end. People with the INFJ personality type don't just see the way things ought to be, they act on those insights as well. Determined and passionate. So when INFJs come to believe that something is important, they pursue that goal with a conviction and energy that can catch others off guard, which I can definitely say is 100% correct for myself.
It's definitely true.
Yeah. Good. INFJs will rock the boat if they must, Not everyone likes to see this, but their passion for their chosen cause is an inseparable part of the advocate personality, which is INFJ. So, for example, me doing the work that I do, if I rock the boat by getting some narcs upset, then so be it, because I feel like, my message and what I'm doing far outweighs that, like the benefit of doing something like this. So I can kind of relate to that in that term as well. INFJs have an altruistic nature, so their strengths are used for good. They will not engage in any actions or promote beliefs just to benefit themselves. They have strong beliefs and take the actions that they do because they are trying to advance an idea that they truly believe will make the world a better place. So look at that. There you go. That's crazy. Do you agree with that too, Sarah?
Yes, absolutely. I learned a long time ago, I can't sell something that I don't agree with. So yeah, it has to be a passion that I really agree with and really believe in.
And I think people, like with our personalities, we really value authenticity. Like, yes. I don't like the whole car sales sort of gig. I just don't like that sleazy salesperson. I like sharing. If some person loves a product, they love a service, whatever, share it with me, but don't sell it to me just because you want to make your commission, or I don't know, you can say you got a certain amount of sales that month. Like, that doesn't interest me at all.
Yes, I just bought a car a few months ago and I walked into the dealer and I said, I want that car. Can you sell it to me? And he's like, do you want to take it for a test drive? And I'm like, well, we can, but I don't really need to know about all the features or anything. I already know what I want. you don't have to do the whole sales tactic thing. And he's like, okay.
I'm like that
the
too.
easiest car he's ever sold.
Yeah. I would rather do my little research at home, figure out what I want, and then just go in and buy it, rather than be subjected to like all their word trickery to make me buy whatever they want me to buy. Do you know what I mean? Like, right. I hate, like, a lot of retailers out there will try and bundle packages to sell more and to up the prices and stuff like that. And so they can get a higher commission. And for me, that just feels wrong, because I'm like, does that person actually need that extra thing? That they just came in to buy a pen. Do they actually want a pencil case, or are you just trying to sell it to them so you get more money in your back pocket? I'm just not into that. I don't like it at all. But anyway, let's move on to weaknesses and then we'll wrap up. So the INFJ weaknesses are, and, once again, take this with a grain of salt, but sensitive. So when someone challenges or criticizes an INFJ's principles or values, they are likely to receive an alarming strong response. People with the INFJ personality type are highly vulnerable to criticism and conflict. Questioning their motives is the quickest way to get to their bad side. Yeah?
Yes. I don't like that they put it under disadvantages. I would put it under advantages and disadvantages, because I think that it's one of our greatest strengths, but also one of our greatest weaknesses too.
I think that's hilarious you said that, because as I was reading, I was like, this should be a strength.
It should. But it's definitely spot on, because when somebody says something to me, I may not lash out at them, but my friends will hear about it. It's like, can you believe this person said this about me?
Yeah.
It's to the point where they're like, you have to stop. Like, stop taking it so personally.
Yeah, I'm definitely more of a sensitive personality type for sure. And, I don't love criticism and conflict, but now that I'm older, I know that there's a time and place for it. At the end of the day, if you put yourself out online, you're going to get criticism, you're going to get the lovers, you're going to get the haters. It's just part of the package,
Yes, and I want to tell you something that one of my friends told me that I think is completely amazing, and it helped me a little bit with that.
Yeah.
She said that when somebody says something negative about her, she says to herself, is that my truth? And if it's not her truth, then she just rejects it, because it's not part of her and it doesn't matter what they think. And I have used that a little bit, and it doesn't completely eliminate that almost hysterical feeling of, why is this person criticizing me? But it helps me a lot that I can say, wait a minute, this is not my truth. So I don't have to accept it. I can reject it.
I love that. That's right. You don't have to take it on. And just because it's that person's opinion, like at the end of the day, everyone's going to have their opinions and stuff, but they're seeing it through their own eyes and their own map of the world and their own perception. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. It might be true for that person, but it doesn't have to be true for you. So I really like that. That's great advice. Cool. So the next one is extremely private. So INFJs tend to present themselves as the culmination of an idea. So this is partly because they believe in this idea, but also because INFJs are extremely private when it comes to their personal lives. They use this image to keep themselves from having to truly open up, even to close friends. Trusting a new friend can be more challenging for INFJs. So what are your thoughts on this one?
I think that part of it is true. At least my experience is that when I meet somebody that I click with and kind of want to open up to, I think it kind of scares them because I am extremely private, but then there will be times that I almost share too much.
Yeah,
and
I
then
like
they
that
don't
too.
really know how to handle it.
Yeah, I'm like that as well. I'm like, in fact, I think the old me was more private, like especially when I had the narcissistic relationship going on, everything behind closed doors was like pretty much a no-go zone. I was just wanting to hold that all in because I knew something was wrong. But now, like new Olivia, like I'm online a lot. I do Instagram stories. I have crazy dance parties. I show the dag and weirdo that I can be. Like I give my innermost thoughts. I write really vulnerable posts and, chuck quotes out there. Like I'm really putting myself out there. So I feel like even though you put yourself out there online, like you still have part of yourself in your life that's private and is just for you and your loved ones. But yeah, I feel like I'm less private now and I'm more open. Like I'm happy to be as open as a book,
Yeah, I think I'm getting there. It's definitely easier with social media than with people sitting in front of you, but it really depends on the people that I'm talking to, honestly.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I agree with that. The next one is something that you touched on before. So the weakness is perfectionistic. So INFJ's personalities are all but defined by their pursuit of ideals. While this is a wonderful quality in many ways, an ideal situation is not always possible in politics, business, romance, etc. INFJs, especially turbulent ones, too often drop or ignore healthy and productive situations and relationships, always believing that there might be a better option down the road. So for me, I believe with the first part of that, like I agree with that. I'm more of an idealist than a realist sometimes, although I'm kind of on a better balance with both now. However, when it talks about the turbulent ones, I don't think I'm that person that's like, there's always a better option down the track, so we'll just let this thing go. I'm not really like that. So how does that sit with you?
I don't think that I agree with the second part, same as you. Maybe I'm just holding out for the best case scenario. I've been accused many times of I don't want to date people that I can't potentially see a future with. Yes. So I don't want to date just for the sake of dating.
Same. Yeah. It's a waste of time and energy.
It is. And I've been accused of having incredibly high expectations. And it's difficult for me to sort out what's the perfectionist part and what is just me having high standards that are acceptable. So I'm more of a let's wait for best case scenario.
Okay,
and
interesting.
I've kind of accepted the fact that I might be waiting for the rest of my life, but I would rather be waiting than to be in a situation where I'm not happy.
I'm like that too. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I 100% relate to that. So for me, I'd rather hold out. There's a difference between having good, healthy expectations and then way overboard. For some people, our expectations might be way overboard for them, but at the same time, they're not for us. They're not on the same energetic level as what we are and what we want for ourselves. So those people can think that. That's okay. That's for them. But for us, I would, as you said, rather like hold out for the right person or, something that you can see long term as opposed to just dating everyone under the sun just because it fills up your cup and makes you feel good. For me, that's a waste of my time and energy. I'd rather invest in quality, not quantity,
Right. But the second part of that, though, where it says that we will be constantly looking for something better, I don't really agree with that because I know that once I find the person that I'm meant to be with, I'm extremely loyal and extremely committed to the decisions that I make, whether it is, the man in my life or the job that I have or whatever decisions that I make, I'm extremely committed to those decisions.
I'm like that.
Yeah, I agree with the first part, but not the second part.
You're definitely my twin. Sister from another mister. I think because that sentence starts off as like INFJs, especially the turbulent ones, often blah, 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 blah. So maybe we aren't the turbulent ones, perhaps. I'm not too sure. But, at the end of the day, like, it's never going to be 100% fits perfectly, these profiles. It's going to be like a generalized thing because, it's not so personalized and individualistic that, you know what I mean? Like it's a generalized broad thing of 16 personality types. So there's going to be some things that are applicable more so to different INFJs as opposed to like you or I. Do you know what I mean? So
right. And I think that's another point to note for people taking the test is that there aren't people who are 100% introverted and there aren't people who are 100% feeling. You may score high on some of those or you could be close to the middle. Like for me, I'm 75% introverted and I'm like 80% intuitive, but I score usually 50-50 on the T and the F. There are levels of it too, and you might relate to both sides of it, especially when you're closer to the middle.
That's right. Like for me, I can't remember the exact numbers except for the introvert and extrovert bit. So introvert, I think it was like 51%, and then extrovert, it was like 49%. So that's pretty close. Intuition, that was pretty high. And then the feeling and judging was pretty close as well. And I can't remember what the judgment one was. But yeah, like when you do the test, guys, you'll get like a percentage back of what is a higher rating for each section. So that's always good to look at as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 2 more to go. So the second last weakness is always need to have a cause. So INFJ's personalities get so caught up in their pursuits that any of the cumbersome tasks that come between them and their ideal vision is deeply unwelcome. I agree. INFJs like to know that they are taking concrete steps towards their goals, tick, tick, tick. And if routine tasks feels like they're getting in the way, or worse yet, there is no goal at all, they will feel restless and disappointed. Holy crap, that is me all over. I can't finish without laughing. I'm like, yeah, that's me.
That's me too. I actually spent 10 years in college because I loved learning, but I also loved the part that you had a goal. You had 16 weeks to finish a goal, and then it was like you accomplished this big thing.
Yes.
So once I was done with college, I was like, what do I do now? Like, I have to set my own goals because it was this whole new thing that I had to learn, to have hobbies, because I had spent so much of my time working and in school at the same time. And I gave myself over to school so much because, perfectionistic, I wanted straight A's. That I put my all into it. And then when I was done, it was like, oh, what do I do now? I don't know. I don't even know what to do. I've learned that, having goals is extremely important for me.
It is. It so is. Like, it gives you something to work towards, and like, it gives you a sense of accomplishment, and like, you're not wasting time. Like, I get what you're saying 100%. And like, it's so much so that I have like not only yearly goals, I've got like quarterly goals, and I've got monthly goals, and I break them down even to the week and sometimes the day. Like, I'm very goal orientated naturally, and that can be good and it can be bad. So I guess that's why it's also a weakness, but that should be a strength too.
Yes, it should.
Once again. All right, cool. So, and actually I should just mention the audience that has listened to my story, if you haven't listened to it already, go back to the start of the podcast and listen to that, because I talk about how when I had a lack of direction and purpose, I was spun into my quarter life crisis, because when I came out of that relationship, because I was engaged to a narc and all the stuff that came from that, like, I was literally lost. I had an identity crisis, didn't know what my life was going to look like, didn't know what my goals were anymore. I had nothing to hang on to and nothing to work towards, because I was just like in this grey area of life where I was just like, the blind leading the blind, not knowing what was happening. So I can see there that if I'm someone that's so goal orientated, no wonder like I spun out in that period of time, because I didn't know what my goals were from that point on, because the whole trajectory of my life had changed. So if there's anybody out there that's feeling the same way and is an INFJ, don't worry, you will get your goal orientated nature back. Just take a bit of time. Cool. All right, last one. So can burn out easily. So the INFJ's passion and impatience for routine maintenance, idealism, and extreme privacy tend to leave INFJs with few options for letting off steam. People with this personality type are likely to exhaust themselves in short order if they don't find a way to balance their ideals with their realities of day-to-day living. Do you agree, Sarah?
I agree, and I want to add something else to that.
Go for it.
That I think maybe should be another point, or that could equally be as part of that. I'm very black and white in my personality. There isn't a lot of gray area. It's either yes or no. It's either, I'm doing it full on, or I'm not doing it at all. I'm obsessed with a project, or I don't even know that it exists. Yeah. I was just talking to my niece about this last night, actually, and I was telling her that I'm kind of at a place with one of my obsessions that I'm questioning whether I need to continue with it. And she's like, you do this all the time. You get really obsessed with something, and then you get burned out, and then you're done, and you move on to something else. Yeah, that's kind of a pattern, isn't it? And maybe that's why, because I put so much effort and so much concentration into something, that there has to come a point where it's like, okay, this is enough. I can't do anything else.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. Definitely. Like, I am someone also that's like an all or nothing personality. Like, if I get a new idea and I decide to do it, I'm like a bull out of a gate. Like, that D energy comes into me again, and I'll get so obsessed with it, and I'll be super productive and I'll get a lot done. But then if I overdo it, I burn out, I get tired, I need time to kind of replenish, my energy source. And if I am a bit more empathic as well, if I'm around lots of people while I'm doing that, that burns me out even more. So for me, I've got to be really careful of my energy. And I am someone that tends to, I wouldn't say I'm all over the place at all, but I'd say because I can be so goal orientated, I can jump from one thing to the next sometimes. But at the same time, like, for example, my business, like if I could do this all day long and not sleep, I'd do it. Do you know what I mean? But unfortunately, I have to get rest and I've got to sleep and I've got to cook and all those mundane day-to-day stuff that it refers to. Doing the washing, the vacuuming, the toilet cleaning, like I hate all that crap.
Right.
Day-to-day stuff. If I could get a house manager to take care of it all for me, I would, so I can do what I actually want to do, you know? So do you agree with the whole, you know, realities versus ideal day-to-day living stuff too?
Yes, for sure. I have so many ideas for my website and my business, and I just want to go full on with those. And it bothers me that I still have a full-time job and I have to go to work and pay attention to the things at work because I'm not passionate about it. I would much rather be focusing, you know, on something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And we were talking about having a purpose as well, that we need something bigger to reach for. And I think that that's part of what drives that. That once you feel like you have that purpose, then you're willing to put whatever energy that you have into it. But like all of the things, I think it's a strength and a weakness. Honestly, it can be a weakness if you let it be that way. But I think it's one of those big things. I've always been one of those people that can dream really big dreams and then make them happen, bring them into life.
Yes.
It's such an amazing thing to see something that was just a dream and, you know, here you are living it every single day. It's pretty awesome.
Oh my God. Yes, that just touched me because like I 100% agree with you. Like I'm someone that can think very big picture, but I have to bring myself like the head out of the clouds back down to earth to really think about, okay, what are the practical steps to get there? And I'm very good at like turning an idea into reality. Like I am. Do you know what I mean? Like I wanted to be a nurse, I became one. I wanted to be a midwife, I became one. I want to be a life coach, you know, and in my own business, I'm doing that. Do you know what I mean? Like some people either are really good at the ideas and don't have much follow through, so they fail, or they're very good at the follow through but don't have the bigger picture. And I think the good thing about the INFJ personality from what I've read about it is that generally speaking, they're good at doing both. So they can end up being very successful because they're not only like coming up with the concepts, they also be able to put it in place and make shit happen.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. And I'm one of those people that, you know, like that job that I went after, there aren't a lot of people that do that. There are a lot of people that dream about it, but there aren't that many people that can make it happen and that are willing to make the sacrifice. We have this personality that's just like a don't stop, you know, don't accept no for an answer, just keep going. And it's the creativity, which is, you know, one of our big advantages where we can find solutions to situations that a lot of people can't see. And we'll just keep going until we find something that does work and we'll figure out how to make it happen.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's true. If I don't burn out, I'll get to that. Like for me, it's really about energy. So I've got to be careful about, you know, not just wanting the end result to come soon enough, but enjoying the journey and looking after my energy along the way so I don't burn out easily and then move on to the next project. But for me, with this business, I feel like this is my life purpose now. Like I feel like this is my thing. This is what I'm meant to be doing, you know, and I think for INFJs, if they can think of the bigger picture, get the practical steps in place and then look after themselves along the way, they can, I guess, make their life be whatever they want it to be, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Awesome. All right, Sarah. So where can people find you on social media?
On Instagram and Facebook, it's INFJ Woman. And then Twitter, it's the INFJ Woman. And then they can also read my blog, which is infjwoman.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all of that great insight, stories and information. Like I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's so nice to talk to another INFJ. I don't think I ever have in person. Well, on the phone at least.
Yeah, I don't think I have either. Like I have online a lot. I've met one other INFJ, you know, through passing, but we never got to sit down and have a chat like this. So this has been really special.
Yes.
We'll definitely keep in contact. So thank you very much. Yeah, if you guys are INFJs, feel free to send us a message and be like, hey, me too. I took the test and guess what? I'm on as well. And if you're not, that's totally fine. No criticism, no nothing. And just don't try and answer the questions like you are an INFJ. Just answer honestly, because if you are really authentic and honest with your answers, you'll get the personality that you really truly are and not one that you want to be. And as I said, all personality types have got weaknesses and strengths. So whatever it is that you are at the end of the day, cherish it, enjoy it. I know this episode was specifically for INFJs, but regardless, you're all special in your own way.
Absolutely.
All right. All good. Look after yourselves, guys, and I'll see you in the next episode.
I hope you guys enjoyed that interview as much as I did. I absolutely adore Olivia, and I'm so glad that she shared the interview with me so that I can share it with you. Make sure that you check out her podcast. It's called Overcoming Narcissistic Relationships with Olivia, and you can find a link for it in the show notes. It's available on all major podcast platforms. Okay, so I have some stories that I want to share with you. Last week I shared a story from Brandy in Ontario, Canada, and she was talking about how difficult it is to find love and asked if anyone had any advice, and also what personalities work best with INFJs. So I have a couple of stories to share. The first one is from Jolis in New York, and she says, "Hello, Sarah. I love your podcast. I always feel inspired when I tune in. There's so much to talk about with INFJs. That's probably why I've sent you so many stories. I have a response to Brandy's questions. Dear Brandy and all of my beautiful INFJs, our need to feel connected transcends all of our insecurities and profoundly contradicts our yearning for peaceful solitude. When we let it control us, it can lead us into the quagmires of toxic relationships because that need is so essential to us. We fail to see the forest for the trees. Taming that wild desire is no small feat, but it is possible. The first thing you have to do is love yourself. I'm not just talking about taking care of your body or cultivating your favorite hobbies or even meditating regularly, though all of this helps. I'm talking about being able to be your own best company. As introverts, we spend so much time with ourselves, so we need to ask, am I in a toxic relationship with myself? Think about the vocabulary you use in your head, even if you never say it out loud. Dig deep and brace yourself. This may take a while. I was in a very toxic, very abusive relationship for 4 years in my early 20s. When I finally wrenched myself out of that situation, I found myself feeling very lonely. I spent a long time unpacking my feelings. It seemed like I always felt lonely, causing me to sail headlong into any connection, even going against my intuition. This revelation made me change my attitude to being alone. I became my own best friend. When under control, the desire to feel connected in INFJs is patient and critical. It looks out for our best interests before giving into the primal urges. The next most crucial step is to drop all of your expectations. INFJs are goal-oriented with strong intuition. This gives us a leg up because we know what to expect most of the time. But it can work against us when we try to plan for human behavior. Getting frustrated over small, unexpected behaviors will leave you stressed and put an unnecessary strain on your relationships. I met my fiancé through a mutual friend. He and I got along very well from the beginning. I was very impressed with his outgoing nature and friendly demeanor. I was so comfortable with him that I asked him to hang out several times before we started actually dating. 4 years later, I proposed to him. My fiancé is the confident people person I often feel too reserved and exhausted to be. He has taught me to go with the flow. There are times he annoys me when he simply will not follow some plan I've made and instead gets distracted by a million ideas, but I accept and love him for it. The best part is he lets me be myself, but I had to let go of how I thought he should act and let him be himself. My fiancé is an ENFP. ENFPs are the risk-taking, outgoing, talkative parts of INFJs that only come out when we're with loved ones. Check out what this site, pairedlife.com, says about ENFPs and INFJs. ENFP, the champion, and INFJ, the counselor, share the NF functions, which means they are both highly intuitive people who would struggle with someone who is more dominated by sensing. These two thrive on metaphors, abstractions, and the creative. Trying to make them be normal and grounded would be like trying to make a levitating unicorn made of rainbows do your taxes. I hope my story resonates with someone, and that the advice I give here makes sense and is helpful. As always, Sarah, thank you so much for giving us a platform on which to share our experiences as INFJ women. Thank you so much for sharing. It definitely resonates with me for sure. I completely agree with you too that the first step is to loving yourself. And that's one of the most important things that you will ever do. It's also one of the most difficult things that you'll ever do. It's easy to take on the opinions of other people and for them to get stuck in your head and for you to start believing those things. And when you're not saying them out loud and you're not really paying attention, it's amazing what kind of toxic things that you can say to yourself that you would never say to any one of your friends, but that run through your head every single day, and that you start to believe those things. And before you know it, it's like you're beating yourself up every single day, and you get to the point where you feel like you don't deserve anything. You feel like you don't deserve to be in a positive relationship. You don't deserve any type of happiness in your life because of all of these reasons that are going through your head. So I completely agree with you that that's the first thing that you need to tackle if you're in that kind of a situation. I've also heard a lot of people say that ENFPs are great matches for INFJs. I personally feel like I really want somebody who is introverted. That's just an idea that I have in my head that I can't get past. So I don't have a lot of experience in that field, which is why I asked other people for their advice, and I so much appreciate that as well. I know for sure that there are other introverts in my life that I get along with. I always go back to my niece because she's actually an ambivert. She's extroverted sometimes and introverted sometimes. So maybe there could be a little bit of room for an extrovert, I feel like. But I know that for me, every time I take the Myers-Briggs test, I come up like between 75% and 95% introverted. So for me, the thought of having an extrovert in my life who is constantly wanting to drag me to events and go out with friends and go out to dinner 2 or 3 times a week, I just can't. I don't. that doesn't sound like fun for me. It doesn't sound like something that's sustainable for me. So maybe somebody who's low on the extrovert scale or somebody who's an ambivert. I feel like I could do that. But thank you again for sharing. Everything that you said really resonates with me, and you write so beautifully. I absolutely love it. And the link for the article that she mentioned is also in the show notes so that you can read it as well. And the next one is from Natalia in Washington State. And she says, I want to share about how I met my husband. I met him when I was turning 30. We met him through a mutual friend at the college I was attending when I did a student exchange. At that time, I wasn't looking for a boyfriend and aiming to continue my studies. However, after we went out for dates a few times, he decided to ask if I could be his girlfriend. I told him I wasn't sure because in 5 months I was going back to my home country and I didn't want to be in just a relationship, but wanted to maintain it for a serious future. He was surprised, and I thought he was a little bit scared because of that. We finally decided to just give it a try, and I risked my situation with the what if he wasn't loyal and just took this for fun. During the 5 months before going back home, I felt he was the right one, even though, of course, there were so many things we needed to work on together to make the relationship work. My intuition was right. After maintaining 3 years of 1,000 miles long-distance relationship, we got married. What was interesting was before my husband came into the picture, I was so close with a friend that I felt he had feelings for me. He was the perfect person that I would marry, actually, but my gut said he wasn't the person. So after a few years of being good friends, we decided not to date, and that's when I left for my student exchange program when I met my husband. Thank you so much for sharing, Natalia. I'm so glad that you trusted your intuition and that you met the right person for you. I feel like there are a lot of times where our intuition tells us those things, when it seems like the right person is right in front of us, but we just don't have the right feeling about it. And it's really hard in those situations to say, okay, this is the perfect person. He checks all of the boxes, so why do I not feel right about this? But in my experience, the best thing that you can do is to trust your intuition. And like we talk about a lot, the more that you trust your intuition, the stronger that it is and the better that it works. All right, so if you have a story that you would like to share, I would love to hear from you. You can submit your stories to podcast@infjwoman.com, or you can send me a direct message on Instagram or Facebook, which is @INFJwoman. There's also a link in the show notes where you can find what kinds of stories that we're looking for. Thank you so much for listening. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. We've already reached 7,000 downloads in just 9 episodes. This is episode number 10. I'm just so completely blown away. Every time I look at the statistics, every time somebody sends me a comment about the podcast, I so much appreciate you guys, really. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoy this podcast, please tell your friends, subscribe, and leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen. It helps other people to be able to find us as well. And thank you again for listening. We'll see you again next week.